Okay, everybody, thank you for joining our webinar for homeschoolers in Civil Air Patrol. I appreciate each of you coming, and we'll get started with this. First of all, I'd like to thank Lakeisha Davis for making this possible. She really is the driver behind this possibility of having more homeschoolers and an actual homeschooling squadron in Civil Air Patrol, specifically in Maryland Wing. So that's we're going to explore today. Civil Air Patrol. We're going to explore what we could do here in Maryland, so that you get a better feel for the opportunities and the possibilities for you and your children ages 11 to 20 in Civil Air Patrol. So let's get started. Okay, let me hold on just a second. I'm having some technical issues here. There we go. Let me explain a little bit about who I am, and I'll introduce you to my family. We are a homeschooling family. Well, we were, and I guess we still are through our grandchildren. This is me. I'm here with the National Commander. I am Brenda Reed. I'm Lieutenant Colonel in Civil Air Patrol. I'm the Maryland Wing Chief of Staff. And this is our National Commander. He is a Major General, Mark Smith. And this was at last year's conference in Anaheim, California. This is my husband here, Chief Master Sergeant Tom Reed. He's retired Chief Master Sergeant, and he currently is Command NCO for the Wing. Here he's teaching a squadron of cadets down in St. Mary's County. And I want to introduce you to my children. I have 3 children. 2 of them were cadets, and I homeschooled them from basically birth until they went to college. So my oldest is here. This is Erica. She's shown there with her husband. All of my children are graduated from homeschooling. They're graduated from college. So we've done it. You know, we've homeschooled some successful young people, and we're very proud of them. So this is Erica. She's my oldest, and she went on. She graduated from college with a bachelor's in science and biology, and she got her master's in science education. This is my daughter, Jennifer. She's my middle child. Always that fun one to homeschool, the one that makes it exciting. She is a graphic artist for a museum. She also graduated from college. She went to get her master's. She has a master's in graphic arts. This is my son here in the middle. Now this is him getting a national award. He's my baby. My baby is going to be 29 in just a few weeks, so that gives you a little idea of my age. He was actually, as a homeschooled cadet, he was the National Cadet of the Year in 2008. He pretty much has done just about everything Civil Air Patrol has to offer. But, you know, I have the 3 children, but I also have another one. This is right here in the foreground. This is Kadee. She is my daughter-in-law. My son and her met actually at Civil Air Patrol event. And they were cadets together for several years, fell in love, went to college, dated other people, and then they came back to each other. So she is a former cadet here in Maryland Wing as well. So you can see Civil Air Patrol, we keep it in the family, all but my oldest. My oldest never joined. She supported, but she was never there. And we continue our homeschooling adventure with these 2 little guys. These are my grandsons, and they are now 8 and 4. The oldest will be starting 3rd grade in the fall, and the youngest has just gotten his books for K4, and he is super excited. So that's my family. That's who I am. So you have an idea that I'm just not talking Civil Air Patrol. I do know where you are as a homeschooling parent. So let's talk about Civil Air Patrol a little bit. Sometimes we're told we're the best kept secret, and I would believe it. My husband was active duty Air Force, and we lived on Air Force bases. Never heard about Civil Air Patrol until he retired. We saw something in the local newspaper, and that's how it got started for our family. Civil Air Patrol has been around since actually before the Air Force was established. Civil Air Patrol began 6 days before Pearl Harbor. It started out historically, we were the coast, the east coast of the United States. In World War II, the Germans were coming over, and we had civilians who had their own planes, flew out over the water, and in some cases actually physically dropped a couple bombs, but it was a deterrent to keep the Germans from attacking our east coast. But Civil Air Patrol today, we were established with 3 congressionally mandated missions. We have one. The first is emergency services. And so these 3 missions are our emphasis today. Emergency services is basically, it started out as search and rescue. If there was a lost person in the mountain. Now, if you think, 20 pre-internet days, pre-cell phone days, you had somebody lost in the mountains, a plane went down. You have to physically get people up in the air in planes to look, and people physically on the ground to get into the woods to find the downed plane and hopefully save a life if you get there quick enough, if the pilot is surviving. Today, we still do that, but in order for us to have our ground teams and our air crews, we have a lot of training, which provides a lot of opportunities as a homeschooler for varied curriculum and opportunities. Hands-on learning is really what we do. In emergency services, so if you just look at some of the pictures here, we're learning, if you're going to be on a ground team, you're going to learn mapping skills, you're going to learn first aid, CPR, you're going to learn how to use radios. There's all kinds, keeping a log, there's all kinds of stuff to learn with emergency services. Emergency services not just on the ground, it's in the air as well. So we have pilots that go up in the air. This picture of the bridge, that's the Bay Bridge, you probably recognize it. We are out there above the Chesapeake Bay every weekend in the summer looking for distressed boaters, looking for oil spills, anything that may happen. Another interesting mission we do for emergency services is working with the Air Force. I was just told that the audio cut out for a minute. Can you still hear me? Just Lakeisha, if you can, just type yes or no in there. Okay, I'm back. Thank you. Sorry about that. So another interesting mission is this one over here in the lower left corner. This is an aircraft jet, and we actually work with the Air Force. As you probably would assume, little airplanes cannot go into DC. After 9/11, it's just not going to happen. So we actually work with the Air Force to help them keep up to speed. We fly our little planes into when I say little airplanes, they're Cessnas. We fly them into DC, and the Air Force scrambles, and they come up and they do everything in their power to turn us around. Now, we're going by a script that are made by these pilots' bosses. So these pilots don't know if we're the real deal or not. Eventually, they figure out that it's a practice. And we fly in until they push us back out. So that is a service that we do. We do this for places like over the Super Bowl. We do it in DC. We do it in a number of areas. Another thing we do is aerial photography. If there's a flood, we fly over the flood, we take pictures and give them to FEMA. And one of our newest missions, and this is where we can bring in the cadets, because not every cadet wants to fly an airplane, is able to fly an airplane. But this in the lower right corner here, we're getting into the UAVs or the drones. And this is a great opportunity for not only emergency services, but for our cadets to learn aerospace topics. Without ever, getting up in the air. So our second mission, first mission is emergency services, second mission is aerospace education. And this is a really cool opportunity for homeschoolers because of all of the curriculum that is available to you. Our cadets can learn not only about aerospace, so you can see pictures of the boys actually building model little airplanes, but we have planes. Every cadet gets 5 what we call orientation flights. So about an hour for each one in the plane. They follow a structured curriculum with a trained instructor pilot who's going to teach them about the aircraft. We also do that with 5 glider flights as well. Now, our gliders are in West Virginia, so it's a little bit harder to get there, but you can definitely do that. So here's some pictures. We also we have military orientation flights every now and then, so you can see some of our cadets on a big plane. When they're on the big plane, they can sometimes go up and actually get into the cockpit. We have simulators. We have a number of things, and in the lower right, you can see some of our aircraft. The aircraft typically in an orientation flight, the cadets, it's 2 cadets, 2 the pilot. They fly for about an hour, they land, they switch seats so that the cadet in the back seat gets in the front seat, and then they can fly as well, so they can see what's going on. And they actually, I'll tell you, my son and daughter went up on their orientation flight the first time, and the pilot was fantastic. He was a middle school teacher, so he was used to young people. And he got them up and he basically said, okay, see that mountain ahead of you? Go fly towards it. Now, my son thought he was in total control of that plane, because at 12 years old, he didn't really think about that pilot knew exactly what he was doing, and that, it was very safe. It is very safe. Our pilots are vetted. Not every pilot gets up there with the cadets. Only the best of the best get up there with the cadets. So that's our aerospace education. So we have emergency services, we have aerospace education, and then what we're really here to talk about is the cadet program. The cadet program incorporates all 3 missions. The cadets work on emergency services, they work on aerospace education, but they also, within their program, it is what I consider the best leadership development program for youth in this country. It's modeled after the Air Force. They wear the Air Force uniform. It follows the Air Force grade structure. So basically they start out as followers, and as they progress through the program, they develop through opportunities to become leaders, where then they are actually leading their peers and their colleagues. And it is an amazing hands-on leadership program. And you can just see some of the pictures here. They get involved in a number of parades. They have opportunities for awards. The lower left picture is a member of Congress, not a Maryland one, but it just happened that I had that picture when I was pulling this up. Once a year, we go up to Capitol Hill, and our cadets can advocate with their representatives here in Maryland. We always get all 10 offices, not always the representative, but at least their staff members, and we're able to advocate right there on Capitol Hill for the organization. And we allow the cadets to have a strong voice here. A lot of times they do the they do this whole talking. We get them started, we introduce them, and then they talk. So this is our cadet program. So we'll talk a little bit more about the cadet program, but I want to introduce you a little bit on and I'm not sure what your screen looks like, but on mine, it's on the right sidebar. There should be a place that says handouts on the bar there. And though I've uploaded 5 handouts that you can download while we're here online, and you can kind of look at them. One of them is actually a revised PDF of this PowerPoint, so you'll be able to remember everything that I'm talking about. The only thing I took out were all the pictures of my family, because you never know where things are going. But there's a cadet fact sheet, there's a cadet flight plan. It's a flyer introducing people to the flight program that our cadets can use. They can go out and basically go from never having been into an airplane to getting their private pilot certificate. And so that kind of shows the opportunities and the possibilities there. Ground team task guide, that will show you some of the skills that we teach to our young people that if they want to be search and rescue. And then I put on there the leadership text level 1. So that's the textbook, the actual curriculum that we use for the first 3 I think it's the first 3 levels in our cadet program. There are 4 of these leadership texts, and they're tested on them, so this kind of gives you the idea of the quality of our curriculum. 4 elements of the cadet program. Cadets usually are ages 12 to 20. However, for a school program, they can start at 11. And what we would be doing with this is we would be trying to get this homeschooling group as a school program so that cadets can start at 11. But there's 4 elements of the cadet program. There's the leadership. This is where they actually 2 parts. They do an academic portion, so they have this text that I've shown you that you can download, and then they do the hands-on, where it's actually they're physically leading other cadets. As they build up, they start with maybe leading 3 people. Then they could get to where they lead their whole squadron, which could be anywhere from 20 to 70 cadets. As they build up, if they go to special activities like our encampment, they have the opportunity to be the cadet commander of an encampment. Our encampment starts this Saturday. There will be 194 students. So the cadets that are leading this not only are teaching 194 students, but they're leading a staff of 70 cadets. It takes a year to get this program the way they need it. It's a lot of planning, but wow, hands-on leadership laboratory. It's amazing. Second element, aerospace. Our cadets progress through aerospace curriculum, where they learn the basics of aerospace history, the basics mechanics of flight. They learn about rockets. Just pretty much everything to do with aerospace. And that's our aerospace program. Along with that goes hand in hand with our orientation flights and our opportunities for flight training. Physical fitness. Our cadets, part of the promotion cycle that they do is a physical fitness. We want our cadets to be, healthy. So to progress in the program, they have to maintain a certain level of fitness. It's not too strict unless you get to the absolute highest award, which we call our SPOTS award. And in order to get that, you actually have to pass the standards that would take you into the Air Force Academy, which, by the way, about 10% of the cadets at the Air Force Academy have been CAP cadets at some point in their life. The 4th element is character development. We want our cadets and all of our members to be strong in their character. We have 4 core values similar to the Air Force that our organization lives by: integrity, respect, excellence, and volunteer service. So character development goes along with those core values. And there's various ways that we implement this cadet program and this curriculum: through squadron meetings, our annual encampment, which is kind of like a basic training light, and special activities, whether they are here in the state, whether they are in the region, or whether they're national. We even have one international program where cadets at the higher levels have the opportunity to go overseas. I myself have gone twice as an escort, once to Belgium and once to New Zealand. So that's some of the opportunities in the cadet program. But we have those 4 elements, and that's what most people, that's the key, the core of the cadet program. What are the benefits of being in Civil Air Patrol? Okay, well, I've kind of mentioned these active leadership opportunities. It's hands-on. You can read about leadership all you want, but until you actually physically do it and you realize the challenges of it, that's where you learn. You find your mistakes and you learn from those mistakes. Access to the aerospace education and the STEM curriculum. Not only is it aerospace, but in this age of STEM, we also have cyber. We're getting into, we work with the Air Force Association with Cyber Patriot. There's all kinds of opportunities that are advancing in this area. Drones. It's a growing area, and that curriculum is always building. We have STEM kits that squadrons can get. So STEM kits are all kinds of actual kits that you can build, such as a drone, little robots types of things, and those are available to squadrons and members. We have the opportunity for flight training. Cadets are not allowed to solo until their 16th birthday. That's the FAA rule. They could solo in a glider when they're 15. In fact, just last week we had our wing solo school, and we took 10 cadets and they had ground school, they had flight training, they each got up 10-15 hours in the plane with a certified instructor. And by the end of the week, out of those 10, 7 of them soloed in the aircraft, plus they passed their FAA private pilot ground school exam. So that is huge. And you would think, that's a lot. Flight training costs a lot of money. Each cadet paid $800. The Air Force covered the rest. And I can tell you it's several $1,000s for each cadet in this program. They're encouraged to keep up their physical fitness. Sometimes it's hard in this age of, couch potatoes and internet to get cadets out, the young people out there moving. Well, they're encouraged to continue their physical fitness. Character development discussions. We want strong ethics. We want those core values instilled in our young people. So monthly they have a discussion, and it's typically led by somebody we call a character development officer, or sometimes we have a chaplain do it. We don't emphasize any particular religion. It's just strong character, core values, morals, and opportunities of, what would you do? Through this, we also bring in what we call drug demand reduction, bringing in the emphasis of, you don't want to do drugs, that type of thing. There's opportunities to pursue interests through multiple events. Not all cadets want to fly. Not all cadets want to be a ground team member. They might want to go into government, and we have activities for government. We have opportunities for just about anything, whether it's space, aerospace, weather, ground team. Even on the ground team, there's opportunities to get into radio communications or working on computers. There's just multiple opportunities for cadets to find their niche. Okay, so I've talked about a squadron, and I've mentioned squadrons, but what is a squadron? So a squadron is a weekly meeting space. It's a group of CAP members who get together once a week, and most of them meet during the evening, either one night, Monday through Friday, usually it's dependent on where they can get space. That typically is the biggest issue. They meet for 2 to 2.5 hours, depending, and it's a place where members can grow their skills in a safe environment. And when I say members, I mean not only cadets, but I also mean the adult leaders. It's amazing what the adult leaders learn as well. And I'm an example of that, just because I was a stay-at-home mom. We moved around with the Air Force, so you didn't get that career. I homeschooled my children. There's not a lot of opportunity to develop my own personal and professional skills at home, doing that kind of thing. Civil Air Patrol gave me that opportunity. I grew in my professional, my leadership skills, my confidence. And so I credit CAP with a lot of that for myself. And I've seen what it did for my children. Their skills, their confidence, their public speaking, just their ability to lead. They're all 3 leaders. Even though one wasn't in Civil Air Patrol, she certainly heard a lot about it. Its squadron has classes. They have testing. They do field trips, and they have a good time. It's a lot of fun. They do drill as well, which I don't have on here. So they do learn military style drill. There is the chain of command, there's the customs and courtesies, the saluting, the yes sir, the no sir, the yes ma'am, that type of thing. Another opportunity is when they come for promotion, they would have basically promotion review boards. Consider this, it's a precursor. They're learning how to have a job interview. Cadets who go through this program, they have an easier time when they go for that first job interview because they're used to being in front of 2 to 3 people asking them questions, and they need to get it right. But and also, and I mentioned my son and daughter-in-law, they met here in CAP. They start friendships that can last a lifetime. We have members in our wing that are their grandparents, or they have children who are, high school age, college age, and they are friends with other members who they were cadets together. My son's and daughter-in-law's wedding, I mean, there were about, I can't count how many CAP members were there, but just in the wedding party alone, there were at least 7 CAP members that they build up, they bond, and these are quality friendships that last a lifetime. What are the benefits specifically to homeschoolers? You're providing a strong social network. I don't know, when I was starting homeschooling, and I'm hoping that the stigma is not there as much now, but it was, oh, there's no social skills with homeschoolers, and I disagree. A homeschooling parent who wants the best for their children will seek out those opportunities. So this provides a strong social network. They're with like-minded young people. A lot of times, cadets or young people who join who are just interested in maybe not being the best that they can be. They may be into some bad habits. They don't last in Civil Air Patrol because for the most part, the cadets in this program have goals, they have a vision, and they're working hard to get there, and they want to be with like-minded individuals that are going to help each other reach their goals. It's a strong leadership laboratory, like I said, for both cadets and adult members. It's hands-on learning, and it doesn't get any better than that. They can build a resume for their college applications. Again, I'll use my son as a story for this. My son at 15 years old started working for the National Security Agency. His resume consisted of primarily everything he had done in Civil Air Patrol up until that point. It was only 3 years worth, but the opportunities that he had been given, he was able to get the job as a high school work study in NSA, and at the end of a year, the agency hired him on full time. And because he was a homeschooler, he could do that because he was doing his schoolwork in the afternoons and evenings because it was a half a day thing. Public speaking opportunities. This is another thing that homeschoolers sometimes struggle with. I know we did the whole routine of having our kids give speeches to the family. Okay, it works. It gives them a taste, but it's still you're giving a speech to your brother and sister and mom and dad. It's different when you're in a room with 40 and 50 people. Many of them your peers. And there are opportunities for that. And that is a life skill, no matter what they want to do when they get out of school. Public speaking will help them. You get the benefit of a varied curriculum throughout. We have textbooks, we have videos, we have activities, we have conferences, we have the STEM kits, all kinds of stuff out there that can be used to add to your curriculum. One year when my son was going through the Solo Academy, we added the aerospace text for the cadet officers as an actual course in his schooling that year. So it was aerospace education, and he was assigned, to go through this book, and he had to write things, and it took some work. I had to, create that curriculum, but he learned so much more, and it just added to his knowledge. Scholarship opportunities. CAP has a lot of these, whether they are scholarships for going to encampment, whether they are scholarships to go to different schools when, whether it's flight schools or different programs, or if it's just flat out, here's money. You've applied, we're going to give you financial assistance to go to college. So there are opportunities for scholarships. And there's just, like I said, there's opportunities for both personal and professional growth for the parents. It's just a good spot, parents, when your children are grown and you may want to re-enter the workforce, and they're going to say, well, what have you been doing with your time? Well, not only, yeah, I mean, obviously staying home with your children and teaching them, that requires a lot of dedication and a lot of knowledge. I learned a ton homeschooling my children, but you can add what you do in Civil Air Patrol to your resume and think about it. You would be leadership. It would be, whether it's administrative, whether, whatever area you want to work on, professional development, teaching, anything like that, you can add to your personal resume as well if you're looking for those types of opportunities. Costs, okay, what's it going to cost? You would think it would cost a fortune. And we joke around that CAP stands for come and pay. Seems like that sometimes, but really, bare bones, it's pretty cheap because here in Maryland, we try to make it pretty easy for our members. Annual dues for cadets is $35. That gets you the dues, gets you into the program, gets the cadets their first curriculum that is sent to them. It gets access to other curriculum, the STEM kits, etc. Annual dues for the seniors. Seniors is what we call our adult members. Is $65. It's more, but we try to keep it cheaper for our cadets, so we have more cadets. The U.S. Air Force provides the first blues uniform for free. Once they reach that first achievement, they get a voucher, and they go to our, it's called Vanguard. It's a vendor, and they turn that in, and they get their blues uniform. Now, their ABUs, which is what used to be called the camouflage. The ABUs, their PT gears, which might be some squadrons actually have like a squadron t-shirt and shorts. Their shoes, their boots, their accoutrements, which, is their ribbons, their name tags, all of that. Those would need to be purchased by the member. The ABUs are kind of getting harder and harder because the Air Force is switching over to a new uniform. Typically, what we try to do a lot with those uniforms is have cadets turn them in when either they leave the organization or they outgrow them. And then we recycle them. So a lot of times the ABUs we can get for free. It's getting harder and harder now that the Air Force has switched over, but so far it's been working. Shoes and boots, I don't recommend you get the most expensive ones out there. You use shoes, low shoes for your blues uniform, and you use boots for the ABUs. Reason I say don't get the most expensive ones is because your children are growing and you don't want to have to be buying those continuously. Costs for encampment, special activities, field trips vary. Depends, other than the encampment, which is required for an upper level achievement, the rest of them are not required. It's really only if the cadet wants to use them. Scholarships are often available for those. Our encampment, the Air Force is actually paying low-income families, people who show a financial need, they're paying the entire encampment fee. An encampment is a week-long. They go to Reisterstown to Camp Frederick for a week, and they learn. Like I said, it's basic training light. So that could be free. Otherwise, we have scholarships. Adult members, if you're going to join, you have to be fingerprinted and screened, and you complete online training. We don't allow anybody to be around our children as a member that have not completed this screening. So that is another reason why the dues are higher, because we have to pay for that screening. So what we're proposing, and I talked to Lakeisha about this, and I'd mentioned it when we had the homeschooling visit to our wing a few months ago, is I've always thought it would be pretty cool to have a homeschooler squadron. Most squadrons, they meet at night. If you have a larger family or you have a lot of little ones, getting out in the evening is tough. It just disrupts schedule. A number of homeschooling families have church on an evening. It's just another night that you really don't want to be out. But we could meet during the day. You just set a day during the week. It's part of your school. It's part of your curriculum. Space is usually the hardest thing to come by for a squadron. Where are we going to meet? You don't want to pay for it, but you need space. Well, right at our Maryland Wing headquarters in Granite, Maryland, it's out near Marriottsville, is our headquarters. We have a huge facility. We have a minimum that we could use of 3 large classrooms that we can use for just about any kind of classes. We have lots of space outside for PT, or if they're going to shoot off rockets or anything like that, we have that. We even have a static Cessna aircraft right there, so if they're studying about aircraft. It is also the site of a former Nike missile base, so we actually are restoring the Nike site down at the lower part of the property. There's a possible opportunity that, again, I mentioned Lakeisha, she had talked to somebody about a possibility of a 4-H connection for younger children. So even if that didn't work out, what I would envision is we have these classrooms. So the squadron meets, and just for grins, obviously you would come together and decide what day. Say you met every Monday from 10 to noon. Well, what do you do with the littles? They're too young to be in the squadron. So, you have them in another room. Maybe you have another mom in there. You could have your own program going on. 4-H, I love the idea of that. It's productive. If you just needed them to be in there working on schoolwork, that could happen too. We have this space. Or you could, they could bring their children, they could bring their cadet, drop them off, and then go do whatever else they needed to do. We're looking at a possibility of a September 2019 start. We think that we could get stuff together and possibly start at that point. It's the beginning of the school year. It's a good time to start. You need a minimum of 8 to 15 members to begin. 3 of these must be adult leaders. I say 8 to 15 because you would start out basically attached to another squadron. You would not have to meet at their squadron, but you'd be attached until you were strong enough as a squadron to basically get that charter for yourself, have your own number, become an official squadron. And sometimes some squadrons, it takes them, it could take them a year to become an official squadron, but usually it's because they're struggling for members to get above that 15 limit. I think, given the network and perhaps the interest in homeschooling, we could meet this earlier. One of the things I would like to do is we have a lot of homeschoolers in CAP now. I'd like to find some homeschooled cadets that are succeeding and see if their parents would allow them to come to the squadron, not as members of the homeschool squadron, but just as cadet leaders and advisors to help the young people in the new squadron learn that drill and all of that. I think that would be a good opportunity in 2 ways. One, the homeschool cadets in the new squadron would have that role model of a cadet that has succeeded. They would see how it works. The advantage to the other cadet, the cadet leader, is, think of it, it's another opportunity for hands-on learning. So it works both ways around. So that's what we're proposing, is a homeschooler squadron to meet sometime during the weekday at Maryland Wing headquarters in Granite, Maryland. So I have questions here, and I also have the link there to the Civil Air Patrol. So it's basically gocivilairpatrol.com. You can go on that. You can see all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to open I'm going to open it up if anybody has questions. We'll take a few minutes. And so what I would ask you to do is, on your side you should see a hand, and if you raise your hand, then I will unmute you, just like I'm about to do for Lakeisha, who just, she's self-muted, so she will not, Lakeisha, if you can unmute yourself, or if you're able to, if you needed to ask a question. Otherwise, if there Oh, okay. She just put on, I have a question thing. She just said it was an accident, so she doesn't want to talk. If there are no questions, then I want to thank you again for attending. There will be a short survey after we close this down, and so if you are interested in being in a squadron, it's going to ask you for a little bit of information, and I will pass that on. Um, and we will see. Hopefully, we'll get enough interest. So I want to thank you again for joining us today. And just so you know, I have been recording this and I will be uploading it to our Maryland Wing YouTube channel, so you'll be able to share it with your friends. So again, thank you for joining us today for the webinar. I appreciate your attendance.